Well, good evening everyone and welcome to One Hub's Racing Pinnacle tier for season 15 at the nearly halfway point of this season, round 5 at the Marina Bay circuit in Singapore. Tonight we're racing under the lights. We're due to go up the track in about 4 or 5 minutes. A few things to talk about before we do, of course. There's been 3 driver changes coming into this event for various reasons. First of all, in the McLaren we've got Larkin 4S. He is replacing VRT Chaparelli, basically due to poor performances and no-shows. We've also got Khalifa ALK 99, who has replaced Tim Vetnik in the Alfa Romeo, and mere, I think half an hour, or an hour before tonight's event as well, MNT Lion in the Racing Point literally just turned around and said, I'm out, I'm done, and he left. No real explanation why, but he's immediately being replaced in the Racing Point by Scott Bugner. Looks like then the lobby is slowly filling up. We've got a couple of drivers I believe will be missing tonight. Louis yet to get into his car, I think, as well, and we're also missing one of the Williams drivers. Toxic Tomato did say that he was going to be missing this race, but he has turned up now, and I'm sure that Louis will be here at some point as well. But S2V Danny, who yes, there's been a bit of a giggle on Twitter over the last week, so I accidentally called him, basically thought he was Danny Tinizza. So it's not, it's Danny Moreno, Pro Sports driver or something like that. I'm not completely sure. So it's Danny Moreno, not Danny Tinizza. Yes, my fault entirely. I take the blame for that. He's not here tonight. That's going to make things quite interesting for the championship, because if Toxic Tomato, who after last week's race win and his very strong performances this season, is sort of an outside threat possibly going into the second half of the season looking at the title, but with no Danny Moreno here tonight, and Louis, if he is here and scores a lot of points, he can really bridge a gap between the rest of the field. So we'll have to keep one eye and make sure that Louis does have a good result tonight. Looks like the lobby is almost filled now, just waiting for a few more drivers. Good evening to each and every single one of you slowly filtering your way onto the stream. Before the race, of course, One Hub tries to get one driver in from each tier and ask them a sort of a controversial question, if you like, try to get a sort of bite in the response from. This week it was Hamilton 44 in the Haas car, but the question put to him was, you know, can you stop getting penalties? You know, can you try and have a clean race? It seems that you always seem to be picking up ETLs and having laps invalidated in qualifying in contact with other cars. And he turned around and sort of half laughed and said, I knew I'd be getting a question like this. He's disappointed with the amount of penalties he's been getting, but he is trying his best, as he says, to try and keep it as clean and as consistent as possible. I mean, around a circuit like Singapore tonight might be quite difficult to do. You can probably expect a few front wings littering around the track once the racing gets underway, but we'll keep one eye on Hamilton. Hopefully he can have a clean and a good race. Another question as well that was put towards a majority of the drivers was, how do you feel about going into Singapore? You know, it's a street circuit, it's a fast street circuit, but it's incredibly challenging, and it's one of those circuits some people really do enjoy the challenge of driving it, especially at night as well. Other people, just like me personally, just want to get this race over and done with. This is a race that can, with the 50% distance, which is 31 laps, it can take up to and over an hour. The podium race that I was competing in earlier was just over an hour, and that had changeable weather conditions. I think we had a safety car and 3 virtual safety cars as well. So this is a race that really, it is one of those ones that you have to have full concentration for up to and sometimes over an hour just to get to the finish. You can expect incidents at the start and throughout the race. You can probably expect a weather change or a safety car or two, and you can expect that all the drivers at start, not all of them will finish. How many will finish? I don't know. Last season I think we only ended up having 6 people finished at race, which was won by Blizzard, with Louis coming in second place as well. So we're just, I think, a minute or two away from the start of qualifying. We might as well just brush up on the standings then, before we go into qualifying, get it over and done with nice and early. So at the top then is Louis in the Williams, 75 points he currently has after 4 races, so pretty much a 75% record there, if you like, with the 100 points that were available in the first 4. Danny, who's not here tonight, is in second place on 62, and then Toxic Tomato's having a very, very strong season so far from McLaren. He's in third on 55. The top 5 then, Rafa in 4th place for the second Williams on 39, and Paris in the second Mercedes on 37. 2 drivers yet to score points, White Fountain and Skeven, White Fountain's been here all season. Skeven made his debut last week. And of course, we've got 3 debutants tonight. We've got Larkin, we've got Scott Bugner, and we've also got Khalifa in the Alfa Romeo. Down in the constructors, and Williams hold a good but slender lead, 114 points to Mercedes in second on 99, so a difference of 15 points there. Third place is McLaren on 56, Ferrari in fourth on 49, Aston Martin Red Bull in fifth on 30. Then it's Racing Point on 24, Alfa Romeo on 15, Haas on 14, Renault on 7, and the Scuderia Toro Rosso team bringing up the rear on 4 points. Special shout out as well, of course, to our league sponsor, Next Level Racing. I always try to give them a nice little shout out as well. They've been sponsoring the league for quite a while. They offer prizes as well for championship winning drivers. I constantly see pictures on social media, Twitter and Instagram, of racing rigs and wheel setups that people have had. So if you are an aspiring sim racer and you want to immerse yourself as much as you can like a real life driver, you can go on their website. You can check out their rigs, their seats, their pedals, their steering wheel setups, and anything else that you might be interested in. It's good quality stuff, so do check them out. They do provide donations to the league. They do sponsor the league as well, so it's a little way of just saying thank you for their continued sponsorship, and do make sure you check their website out. So Sean Bugner's coming in. Good luck, Scott Bugner. I can only assume that Sean and Scott are related some way, having the same surname, possibly brothers. But yeah, Scott Bugner making a debut here tonight as well. This is a very tricky circuit to get right, Singapore. Plenty of turns. Sector 3 is very much left, right, right, left as well. They go under the bridge as well. You see the cameras pop off when we're driving on board with drivers as well. And it really, all the lights around it really does illuminate the circuit. If it is wet, and certainly heavy rain as well, it's very difficult to see around here. With it being so enclosed between the barriers and the walls, the spray comes up from behind the car and really has just nowhere to go. So it's incredibly difficult for the drivers following cars in front in difficult conditions. I'm not too sure what the weather was like in the precision tier. Unfortunately, as soon as the podium race ended, I had to go away, do my notes, get ready for this. But certainly in the podium tier, it had very mixed conditions in the race as well. And with the safety cars and virtual safety cars, it really can bring a sort of a topsy-turvy race finish as well. And you might see some people here tonight that are good around Singapore have poor races, and vice versa as well. It's difficult to call a winner. Really is. Unfortunately, we've just got to sit back and relax for the next 31 or so laps. So we're missing 2 Mercedes drivers and 1 Williams driver, so hopefully Louis can get in. I'm pretty sure he is racing, but I'm going to take a very short break here before we go into the qualifying session. So then, I've just been informed that unfortunately Louis is having connection issues, which is a big worry. We are in danger here of not having our top 2 in the championship as it stands here tonight. He should be coming, hopefully he will. There might be a couple of minute delay. In fact, there is going to be a few minute delay just to try and allow him into the session. There's no sign of Rafa as well, I believe, because coming down here. No, Rafa is in, so we know that Danny is not here. There's no sign as well of Paris, who's here, who's another quick driver. So we could be missing potentially 3 of the quickest drivers in this tier, which will give a good opportunity for some other drivers to really score a good result tonight. I'm looking at the likes of Midnight as well. He had a good result last week, but he definitely needs more. Another thing to talk about as well was the penalties from last week. There's only one really to talk about. It was an incident between Tim in the Alfa Romeo and Skeven at turn 1 on lap 1. Tim was adjudged to have been at fault for that incident and picked up a 5-second time penalty. change nothing, and it changes nothing here tonight because obviously Tim has left the league as well. So as it stands, pretty much everyone has a clean slate going into the qualifying session, and we're just waiting now for hopefully Louis to possibly join. Paris, I'm not too sure what his situation is about. I've heard nothing, and Danny turned around earlier and said that he would not be here tonight. So we definitely do have at least one driver who will not be here tonight. We're just waiting for the other two as well. White Fountain there you can see is our lobby host, and thank you to him for setting up the lobbies each and every week, providing the invites, making sure that he has a stable connection to make sure we don't get any disconnections or any lag, or certainly as little as possible. So thank you to him, and he will be looking at getting a positive result tonight. He's been saying since the start of the season he's expected to be running at the back of the field. He has been running at the back of the field, but we've now got 18 drivers, so someone has managed to jump in. It is Louis then, so Louis has managed to get in. So as it stands, we're missing both of the Mercedes drivers, which is not good at all. But here we go then. The session countdown is starting. Everyone has got the green tick. Everyone is ready to go and tackle the streets of Singapore. So here we are in the night sky at Singapore. 18 drivers you can see on the list. We are missing both of the Mercedes drivers. That could be crucial in terms of the constructors, as Williams currently lead Mercedes by 15 points. So I was a little worried about Louis there. It was taking a little while to ready up. Skeven comes in to the chat to say hello, good evening Skeven, good luck tonight around this circuit. I probably will say it, but I probably don't need to really. I'm expecting a weather update in the next 30 or so seconds from Cohen. He's been very reliable with that. So if you are listening, my friend, a weather update in qualifying and the race would be incredibly helpful. Let's bring up all the details then for all of these drivers. We'll bring up the full track map as well so we can see what's going on out there, as we've got the Ferrari of, well, one of the Ferraris at least coming out onto the circuit. Now I think there'll be time for these drivers to get 3 good timed laps in. You might be seeing some people out there on the mediums and the hards initially to set their, of course, their banker lap as well. The soft tyres are pretty horrendous around here. You won't be seeing too much soft running in the race, so don't be surprised if a majority of the drivers inside the top 10 actually try to set their best lap on the mediums. The exit the pit lane very busy here. We've got a Racing Point, a Haas, McLaren, and now a Renault of Josh coming out onto the circuit at number 97 in that yellow and black Bumblebee looking car. So the track is slowly starting to fill up now. You can see that the Ferrari, it would have been the Ferrari of, who would it have been? Zach, I believe it would have been. Yep, he's first out on circuit and he's got plenty of clean air around him as well. Harry and Hamilton, both the hard drivers, out on circuit early, both onto the hard tyres as well. So some drivers will be out there on the hards, putting in their banker lap, just getting a feel for the things and making sure everything's okay with the setup wise and the track conditions, and they feel comfortable, and then they'll be back in as well, and then they'll be making a change onto either the mediums and the softs, going for their quick laps towards the end of the session. Of course, in the qualifying, the track is at its best towards the end of the session. The more cars out there laying rubber down, then the track gets grippier and therefore faster as well. So the lap times coming in early, we'll pay attention to, but you'd be expecting them to get better and better as the session goes on. So Hamilton out on circuit, he'll be looking to keep it clean. Same for Harry as well. Akita in the second Ferrari immediately out it on the soft tyres. So we've got a mix of hards and softs at the moment. Jump on board of the Ferrari driver. 2 DRS zones here. The first one is down the main straight. You can see on the track map there in the bottom right hand corner, that sort of green circle there, that's a DRS detection point. And then just before the start finish line, you can see the track map there is a little bit green. That's basically the start, and then just up towards the end of the main straight you can see a little bit of green there. That's the end of the DRS zone. You can see as well around about turn 3 to turn 4 the second DRS detection point down the back straight. with a little bit of a kink in it as well. So quite clear on the graphic there where the DRS detection points are and the beginning and the end of the DRS detection zones. And most overtaking tonight will be at the end of what will be the biggest of the two DRS zones, although overtakes can be done elsewhere around the circuit. Certainly if you're following someone very closely in front of you and they make a mistake, you can easily slip by. But this is an incredibly unforgiving street circuit, very much like Baku, very much like Monaco. There are run-off areas around here, so if you do make a mistake, you can quickly recover with a nice little three-point turn or something. But you snatch a break or you go side by side with someone, it's going to be incredibly difficult to manage to keep it clean, make no contact. You know, one mistake into the wall and you damage your front wing, puts you off strategy possibly, and it's a very long and slow pit lane here. So you will lose a lot of time, and of course all these drivers will have to make at least 2 pit stops. If it is a full wet race, they still have to make 2 pit stops, even if you only get 2 sets of wet tyres. So the league have basically turned around and said, well, in that case then you're going to have to pit at some point and do a lap on the intermediate, struggle around, get back in for another set of wets, or put on your first set at the second stop. So no matter what happens tonight, whether there's safety cars, whether it's a full wet race, you have to make 2 legitimate stops. So no lap times on the board just yet. We're looking at Ollie Flavel here in the main DRS area, if you like, coming down to turn 5 or 6. We have our first lap on the board. It's from Zach, who was first out on circuit, a 1:34.706. Stephen comes in to say the last 2 segments are wet in the race. The race is broken up into about 6 or 7 segments, and each segment will have its own sort of weather indication, whether it's going to be cloudy, sunny, a little bit of rain, heavy rain. Looks like it's going to be dry, but then towards the end of the race, probably around about lap 21, 22, we are expecting a weather change, which will make strategy very, very clear for these drivers. You want to be making 1 stop onto another set of dry tyres, and then your second stop ideally onto a set of either intermediates or wets, and carry them to the end of the race to make sure you get your 2 stops in and you don't lose any time. So 3 laps now on the board. Both the Haas cars have posted their first ones, a 37.2 for Harry, a 37.9 for Hamilton, and Larkin making his return or his debut tonight in the McLaren. He pops up into P4 and a 37.6. Midnight provisional pole 34.2, but I'll be expecting these lap times to get quicker and quicker. We'll jump on board with Ollie now. Just last couple of corners to go. Very tricky, clumsy sector 3, a lot of lefts and rights everywhere. You want to stay off the curbs as much as you can. They are high, they are unforgiving, they do unsettle the car. And the second Red Bull across the line on the hard tyres at 37.618. The banker laps are coming in now. Lakitu just across the line, 34.549. Skeven now posts his first representable lap time of 34.564, just 200ths shy of Lakitu's P2. So Josh back in the pits, he's done his cycle lap, same for Westy as well. Toxic Tomato's already completed 1 flying lap, but it was invalidated, so he's going out again. Looks like he's set a purple sector for sector 2. We'll jump on board with the McLaren as he now tackles the very clumsy, I like to call it sector 3. So 90-degree turns pretty much everywhere, under the bridge with all the lights as well, which is absolutely fantastic. And I think if you get a grandstand seat there and see the cars whiz underneath you and out the other side, it's probably an incredible sight to see. Almost clips the outside wall there. Last corner now. Run the car a little wide, not too wide, don't want to invalidate. But he sets his first representable lap time and his second lap on the hard tyres of 37.494. 11 drivers have set lap times. Scott Bugner, the slowest of those so far, 38.345 as he begins life in the Pinnacle tier. After tonight, we have the traditional mid-season break, but there is action going on. It's the charity event that One Hub like to do as often as they can to try and raise as much money to eat money for their chosen charities. That will be live streamed and commentated on, not by me but by others as well, and it's an invite to all the drivers to get in, first come first served. I believe that all the invites have been filled up and it is going to be a nice charity event. The next event will be in 2 weeks time as we kick off the second part of this shortened season. So Scott back in the pits, Louis still in the pits, currently with the soft tyres on his car. We've got Ash Best now. He's on an outlap in the second racing point. White Fountain out there at the moment. And he's coming around to complete his first flying lap. It's not going to be fast. It's not going to be competitive on those hard tyres. It's only good enough for P11, a 38.293 as the Toro Rosso driver really is struggling with life in the top tier. Khalifa, another debutant tonight in P15, still in the pits. Rafa is out on circuit. as is Josh down in 18th. But it's Midnight then that still holds provisional pole position with just over 10 minutes left of his session. Lakitu, Skeven, Zach and Harry complete the top 5. But there's a mix of softs, mediums and hards. We don't really need to pay too much attention to the drivers on the hard tyres. They will be back out, of course, on either the mediums or the softs. But I'll be expecting a few to try and get inside the top 10 on the mediums. But that weather change towards the end of the race will leave some of these drivers guessing. As Rafa's now just slowly warming himself up, getting ready to put the pedal to the metal around a circuit around the Marina Bay. So we've got a yellow flag in sector 2, but someone going slowly. And Louis coming in saying, Alex, in quali, last 2 segments means 20 minutes in. I don't know if it's going to be wet in qualifying. I assumed it was going to be wet in the race. That's what I'm asking, because we can see at the moment it's dry in qualifying. Unless it's going to be rain towards the end of qualifying. I wouldn't be surprised. As Jester's just come on saying every race in one hub was affected by the rain. So it looks like then that the precision tier tonight, that's probably still going on to be honest, has had weather changes as well. Such is the way of life at Singapore. So Rafa coming round then to start a flying lap. Let's see what the Williams driver can do. We'll stay on board as far over to the right hand side as possible to try and get the quickest line into the turn 1, 2, 3 and section. So many turns here, it's difficult to keep up with. You can see there he's maxing out the ERS as well, low on fuel, try and get the quickest lap time as possible through the kick of 4, now into the right hander of 5. He'll open up the DRS again, finger on the button to try to get the most speed possible. He'll be as close as you like to about 193, 94 mile an hour. Heavy on the brakes all the way down to 3rd and 4th, short shifting up into 4th to kill the rear wheel spin. He's got another yellow flag out there, another car that's either hit the wall or is going slowly. Rafa won't care though, he's pushing on. Needs a good result tonight along with Louis to really extend that gap in the Constructors' Championship, and Rafa's in the top 5 of the drivers as well, and with Danny Marina not here tonight and Paris as well in the Mercedes, this is an opportunity for Rafa to get himself inside the top 3 possibly. More yellow flags out there, drivers jumping out of each other's way as we come down now to complete sector 2. 102.112 so far for Rafa. We've got nothing to compare it to because this is his first hot lap in the qualifying session. So he has left it late to get a first lap time on the board. Now for the tricky, clumsy, slow sector 3 section. The rights, lefts, the lefts and the rights underneath the bridge. He's kept it clean so far. It's looked like a clean lap, and just as I say that, the back end steps out and it's unsettled him all into the next section of the corners as well. I don't know whether he'll complete this lap. He won't, and he'll be back in the pits. So unfortunate for Rafa there. Momentary lapse in concentration, and that's all you need around this circuit. One little mistake like that and your qualifying lap is ruined, as Zach now goes on to provisional pole with 34.036. So 6.5 minutes left to go in the session. Louis come back in saying, Alex, in quali you only get to show the last 3 segments of the race, which is at 0 minutes, 20 minutes and 45 minutes. Okay, so that could be then the inters is possibly for the best part of half the race. We'll get a clearer picture. Well, the drivers will get a clearer picture when they look at the weather report as they're sitting on the grid sorting out their tyre strategies. That then splits into about 6 or 7 segments, which is what I was talking about earlier, and their drivers then will have a clearer picture of exactly roughly when the rain is going to fall. So we know that it's going to be wet in the race, and it's going to be probably from half distance onwards. So tyre choice in qualifying and at the start of the race for those starting outside the top 10 is going to be crucial. You kind of want to get a set of tyres to the weather if you can, and then make another change as well. Safety cars and virtual safety cars might see drivers in the pits as well, coming slightly off strategy, getting their second pit stop done and dusted, and they won't lose too much time as well with the full course cautions out there. So we'll have to see how this race develops. At the moment, Ferrari are looking very good. Zach on provisional pole. Likitu now up into second place. So Midnight's down into third. But we've yet to see quick lap times from Louis and Rafa. We've just got Toxic Tomato down in P9. He's been regularly inside the top 5 all season. So just over 5 minutes left to go. These guys that are in the pits, and there's quite a few of them, are only going to get one attempt at the moment. So we're going to get, I think, a little bit of a quiet spell shortly. Midnight is on a flying lap at the moment, a 34.2, and he increases by 3 tenths to put himself back on the front row of the grid. And it's the first driver then that is now into the 1 minute 33s with a 33.984. So Midnight's got a good turn of speed in that Aston Martin Red Bull. An early favourite for success here tonight. His teammate in 6th as well. So Red Bull doing well. Ferrari as well in 2nd and 3rd. Josh has now put his first lap on the board, a 34.466. Currently in the pits but sitting in P4. Ollie, I believe, will be in at the end of his lap to make the change onto either the mediums or the softs. Top 5 definitely locked into the softs, as you can see. Harry in the pits, same for Larkin. Toxic Tomato has invalidated. So he'll have enough time to get back into the pits and get back out again. And this is a little quiet sort of period we now have in the race. Khalifa coming back into the pits. Ash is out on the circuit though, so it looks like he's going early to try and beat the traffic. He's yet to set a lap time as well, as he just gets a little bit of a drift on there coming out the right hander underneath the bridge in sector 3. He hasn't got a lot of ERS, and in fact he's coming into the pits, and Ash immediately leaves the session. So connection issues there for the Racing Point driver, and he's only got a few minutes to get back in. If you're disconnected at the end of qualifying, it will kick you out the race and you won't be able to start. So hopefully Ash can get back in sooner rather than later. Rafa now back out on circuit. He's joined by Skeven and Larkin. Midnight and Toxic Tomato will be back in the pits very, very shortly. So the track will slowly start to fill up. You need to be out there with about 2.5 to 3 minutes left to make sure you get round a nice leisurely pace, warming up the tyres and the brakes. You don't want to come out with about 2 minutes left, because you're going to have to absolutely push for all and everything. Get round on your out lap just so you get enough time to start your flying lap. So Louis now out on circuit as well. So both the Williams drivers, one of the early drivers, out for their final run. And Ash has managed to rejoin the session. So hopefully he can get back into his car. Whether or not he'll be allowed back out on circuit or not remains to be seen. It's Josh in P4, he's out on circuit. Skeven, we know as well. So the track is slowly starting to get a little bit more busy. And I'm sure with the last couple of minutes now in the qualifying session, we're going to see lap times and positions change. Skeven now just sets himself up. Yellow flag in sector 3, that is for Skeven going slowly. It's just going through the low gears there, trying to build a bit of tyre temperature into those rears. They do burn up around here, around Singapore, so you have to be careful with them, but you need to have that grip at the start of your lap at least, otherwise you're going to be off. Skeven then throws the Alfa Romeo into and out of the final corner, opens the DRS. Skeven then down into the first couple of corners now. He'd be disappointed with his performance last week in Austria. He's one of the few drivers to go backwards in that race. Currently sitting in P5 as a quick driver. I've commentated a race against him for the last 3 or 4 years now. I know he's a quick driver and I know he'll want a good result tonight. Hammering up through the gears and the revs with the DRS as well. Very late on the brakes, down to 3rd and straight up into 4th to kill that rear wheel spin that we see all these drivers do. Track, as you can see now, starting to fill up. More and more drivers coming out, just a couple left in the pits. I think everyone is going to be out for at least one more go. Skeven then, it's looking good so far. As he goes through the redesigned and remodified Singapore Sling that's had quite a few alterations over the years. Certainly the best one so far. We'll jump back on board with the Alfa Romeo driver. Down yet another little back straight. ERS in number 4, down to number 3 as well. Constantly changing, trying to find as much power as he can. He doesn't want to run it towards the end either. She's looking good so far for Skeven. And he really is hammering down that gearbox as well. Hopefully he can take the strain. Just a few corners to go then. Nicely over the curbs. You don't want to go over it too much. It will unsettle the car. Certainly around here as well. You lose a lot of time if you take too much curb. You're able to drift the car a little wide there. Stay away from the wall. Final left hand kink. He's out of ERS, but over the line. Skeven does improve, but he would have wanted a few more attempts. A 34.223 from the Alfa Romeo driver. Where's Rafa in all of this? He's He's only at the start of his lap. Josh is coming to the end of his final run as well. Louis is out on circuit. Ash is back in his car and out on circuit as well. Westy's on a flying lap, so hopefully everyone can get a lap in. 24 seconds left to go. I don't know if both the Red Bulls are going to be able to get round in time. They're still a few corners away, and Josh has made a mistake, and he's bottled it. And he's come back into the pits. His qualifying session is over. Where's Ollie and all this? Is he going to get enough time? I think he will, but Midnight on provisional pole is leaving this incredibly late. He's going to be, I think, the very last car across the line. 3, 2, 1, and I think Midnight has just about managed to get across the line. Indeed he has. Midnight will be the last car across the line. He had a second left to go. Louis has put a lap on the board. It's only good enough for P5, so a championship leader and regular poleman has only managed to get up into P5. Rafa, with his lap as well, has managed to get up into 7th, and he's backed off as well. So the Williams guys that are in pole position here tonight to really extend their championship lead can do no better than P5 and P7. We know Skeven has finished with his qualifying. Wesley Kitu in all of this, he's still pounding around halfway around sector 2. Zach has backed out, he's invalidated. Where's Midnight in all this? He's still pushing as well. We've got yellow flags in sector 2 and sector 3. Westy's session is over. P8 for the Renault driver, so Josh has out qualified him. Harry finishes in 9th. Khalifa on debut is in 11th. Cohen has finished down in 16th as well. Ash Best in all of this is still in sector 2. So where's Lakitu? He's coming to the end of his lap now. He's got a couple of cars in front of him. I don't think it will hurt him too much. Rafa retires from the session. That's fine. We knew his session was over. So here comes Lakitu. Then he needs to find just over a tenth to improve. If he's going to take provisional pole, he does. It's a 33.76 seconds. All eyes are going to be on Midnight now. Zach, we know, has had to back out of it. So Midnight then, if he wants pole position, he needs to find just over 2 tenths here. I've missed the sector 2 time. Hopefully he hasn't been hindered by traffic. He's got his teammate in front of him. That won't put him off. He's too far up the road to really trouble the car. Larkin in 13th for tyres from the session. Midnight, can he retake it? He can't. He fails to improve. It's going to be Lakitu on pole position, as Louis is the final car left to finish qualifying. He'll be back in the pit. So it's a Ferrari at the pole position with Lakitu. Midnight in the Red Bull joins him on the front row. In the second Ferrari, Zach in 3rd place. Skeven in 4th. And our championship leader Louis could do no better than P5. Completing the top 10. Half of them have gone for the mediums to try and take them as far into the race as possible. Westy in P11, Harry in 12th, and it's Larkin, Scott Bugner, White Fountain in 15th, Khalifa 16th, Ollie Flavel 17th, and Cohen rounds out the field in P18. Mediums and softs inside the top 10 is going to make a very interesting first part of this race. I'm going to take a very short break, and I'll be back with you guys during the formation lap. So Lakitu on pole position, aggressively weaving from side to side to generate as much tyre temperature as possible. Bit of a dirt moment from me. Didn't realise that Louis and Rafa were only down in P5 and P7 because they set their best laps on the medium tyres. Those on the softs, they could possibly have been challenging Lakitu for pole position. So we will bring up the tyre graph there, and as I always mention, of course, in real terms of F1, if it's a dry qualifying and a dry start to the race, those that qualified inside the top 10 have to start on the tyres they set their best lap on. So as you can see, we've got 5 drivers on the softs, 5 on the mediums, and there'll be a little bit of wear already on those tyres, obviously 3 or 4 laps. Everyone else from 11th down to 18th or 20th, if we had a full grid, have got a free choice of tyres to go for. And they'll have no wear on them at all, so a nice super sticky set of tyres, and they've all gone for the mediums. So quite clear that these guys want to get the mediums if they can to the rain shower, and then possibly make a second stop during the wet weather portion of this race to get their 2 stops over and done with. So the top 5 then possibly might break away at the start, but they may have to pit before the rain shower to get off of those soft tyres. So a good qualifying position here is crucial. You don't want to be in that midfield sort of cluster zone where it's easy to make contact with other drivers. But it does seem to be that the medium tyres was the best tyre to be on for the start of this race. Of course, when the rain does fall, we don't know when. It is going to. We don't know when. It could make a change onto the intermediates immediately, or it could be a few laps in the podium race tonight. Within half a lap, the track conditions deteriorated so much that those on the dry tyres, including me, massively struggled just to get back to the pits. So all the drivers have behaved themselves on the formation lap. Lakitu there brings him round to the grid. Midnight joins him on the front row, and Lakitu's backed up very nicely by his teammate Zach in P3, Skeeven in 4th, and then the first of the medium tyre runners, Louis, in 5th. Josh in 6th is on the softs. Then we've got Rafa in 7th, Toxic Tomato in 8th, Ashbest in 9th, Hamilton in P10. We'll scroll back up to the front. You can see there the Toro Rosso's getting in position towards about Cohen, qualifying in 18th. And here we go then. The midway point of the season is almost upon us. Almost an hour worth of racing here tonight around the Marina Bay circuit under the lights at Singapore. 5 lights on now. And the lights go out and away we're racing at night. It looks like a good start by Lakitu. Midnight immediately over as well, and Zach is making a good start around the outside. Watch out for Louis. He wants to gain positions if he can. It's a great start by Lakitu. He's streets ahead already. Midnight in 2nd. Zach holds on to P3. Skeeven and Louis battling over 4th and 5th. Further back as well. Looks like everyone's 2 by 2 but keeping it clean. Yellow flag is out. Someone's clipped the wall somewhere, and we've got a virtual safety car immediately on the start here. A virtual safety car. Can only assume that someone somewhere has clipped the wall. I'm looking at Cohen here at the back. Is he okay? Looking at all the front wings as they flash past. Everything seems okay, so I'm pretty unsure as to what the VSC has come out for so early in this race as well. We immediately go back to green flag racing, so very unsure what happened there. But Lakitu blasts away. Good start. Already a second clear of Midnight. He'll be happy with that. Zach in 3rd's now got Louis on those medium tyres up behind him in 4th. A little bit of a gap back to Skeeven already as the rest of the midfield filter their way through. Looks like we've got Westy and Josh exchanging positions for 10th and 11th. Ashbest in 12th. I believe he's back in his car. He is, as the rest of the lower runners now all filter their way through. White Fountain getting very close to tagging the back of the racing point. Manages to keep it clean. Harry in 14th. Scott Bugner down in 15th. And it's Khalifa Ollie Flavel in 17th, who I believe might have a bit of front wing damage. In fact, Cohen looks like Cohen's got a bit of front left damage, and I believe Ollie might have a little bit as well. No, he's okay. So possibly the VSC was out to clear the debris up that Cohen had left on the exit of the first couple of corners. But as we come to complete lap 1 then, it's Lakitu that leads, just under a second ahead of Midnight. Zach in 3rd has now got the attentions of our championship leader Louis. He'll be looking for maximum points tonight. No S2V Danny here tonight, so this is a great opportunity for Louis to extend his lead as we reach the midway point of this shortened 10 race season. Skeeven is already dropping back, so his qualifying pace was good. Race pace not on point at the moment. Maybe the soft tyres already starting to fall apart a little bit. The soft tyres are pretty horrendous round here. We've got 2 drivers in the pits obviously fixing damage. It's Hamilton and Josh for the Haas and Renault teams, and it looks like already we're starting to see the first few drops of rain Indeed we are. You can see it already splashing off of the T-cam here. So this is arriving, I think, much earlier than most of us would have expected. The drivers on the grid, while setting up their tyre strategies, would have had a more clearer picture. But already then, halfway around lap 2, the rain is beginning to fall. Is it going to need a mental change onto the intermediates within a lap or two, or is this rain going to slowly fall and slowly build on the surface? All of a sudden, these soft runners could be looking good. I think Zach's made a mistake coming into the hairpin, and Louis manages to sneak by on the outside, coming into the braking zone for the right-hander. A very tricky corner as well. It's easy to be unsighted into a corner. You leave it too late, all of a sudden the corner's on top of you. We've got a yellow flag in sector 2. That's Cohen, who's in the wall again, and it looks like he might have a bit more damage, so he's really struggling already in the early part of this race. The rain is already falling here then. It's Lakitu and Midnight slowly start to pull away. You can see the back end of the cars are starting to weave and dance around. The track conditions possibly already changing a little bit. This is looking good for Louis as well. The medium tyres will cope a little better as the rain slowly begins to fall, and it's a new fastest lap from Louis as well. So he at the moment is looking good at closing and possibly challenging Midnight and Lakitu for an early race lead here. And he's gained a lot of time in the first few corners. They've dropped Zach, who's really struggling already on those soft tyres, and I think all the soft runners are already struggling in these changing conditions. The temperature goes away quickly from these tyres. We've got Toxic Tomato P3 in the championship, 7th at the moment, a couple of seconds ahead of Larkin. We're starting to see a bit of field spread with some of these midfield runners. They try to settle down into a rhythm, but they'll be keeping one eye on the weather, talking to their engineer as well, wondering on the change if and when it's going to be needed. Yellow flags in sector 2. Zach's out the race. There's his car facing the wrong way. Heavy front right damage on that car. He's lost it on the curb, and we have our first safety car of the race. This could be crucial. We could see pit stops now onto the intermediate tyres. Zach immediately leaves the session in disgust. Cohen is coming out of the pits onto the intermediate tyres. He was already in fixing front wing damage. Hamilton and Josh have nothing to lose. They're in and out on the intermediate tyres, and now these drivers will be thinking, do I need to pit? Have I got to pit for the intermediate tyres? We're going to be several minutes behind the safety car here, and I think Lakitu there just burning up the rear tyres, trying to find out how much grip is available to him, and I don't think we're going to be seeing anyone risk it on the dry tyres now. Cohen, Hamilton and Josh will have to keep one eye, see if they are managing to get round okay, or if they are struggling on their tyres. They unfortunately do still have to stick to a delta time. And we've got another car, I believe, somewhere on circuit. It looks like on the exit of turn 4 that stopped. That would be the safety car, wouldn't it? Oh my god, that's a massive F for me. So the safety car's obviously stopped in the exit of turn 4, waiting for the leaders to come around. But I think the leaders are going to be in for the intermediate tyres. So the rain has arrived a little earlier than I was expecting it. The drivers might have already known. And look at this, the pit lane is going to be incredibly busy. Double stacking might be a problem for the Williams and McLaren guys, possibly the Racing Points as well. They're all close together, so we'll jump on board with Rafa, see if he's going to be, I believe he will definitely be held up by his teammate. You can see now the tyre graph on the left hand side, the yellows and the reds will disappear and everyone is going green. So here comes Rafa down into the pits. His teammate is being serviced. Rafa is being held. He's being held. He's being held. I think Louis managed to get the jump. He has. Louis has managed to get the jump on both Midnight and Lakitu by being at the end of the pit lane. That's why the quick guys want the Williams, because they're at the end of the pit lane. They don't get held up in situations like this. And that is why Louis is back out in front. Midnight in second. Lakitu third. Skeven back out in P4. Rafa out in fifth. So damage limitation. Toxic out in sixth. But Larkin is going to be held up massively. These two were together on track. So Wesky has benefited 7th. White Fountain, our perennial backmarker, out in P8. He'll be loving life this high up in the field. Ashbest and Khalifa 9th and 10th, and it'll be Harry out of the pits in Ollie in 11th, Harry in 12th, Larkin all the way down in 13th. He's lost out big time here. Bugner in 14th. Cohen will join back up in P15. Hamilton and Josh 16th and 17th. That's your order behind the safety car here for the next lap or two. The wet weather is here, the conditions are going to be tricky. Visibility is going to be poor. You can already see even at these lower temperatures, slower speeds I should say, and lower temperatures, these guys are going to really struggle for visibility. There's nowhere for this weather to go when it gets kicked up off of the rear wing and rear tyres. So lap 4 of 31, the action is red hot and it's going to get even better once this safety car pulls in. Then we go back to green flag racing. Cohen going very slowly. In fact, he might have had a spin possibly as he damaged that front wing. We'll need a better than a sort of a low helicopter shot here to see if he has got damage on that car. He'll have time to get back into the pits. He's okay by the looks of it, so he'll be able to carry on, but Cohen really struggling. So that 4 of 31. We're under safety car conditions. We had a VSC at the very start as Cohen clipped the wall and damaged his car. But safety cars come out for Zach, losing it on the exit of turn 6. And he was looking good in P3. Qualified in 3rd, running in 3rd. Puts it into the wall. Our first official retirement. Everyone is in for the intermediate tyres. So everyone has completed at least one stop. Now definitely have to be in again. I won't be able to get the intermediates to the end. So that 4 of 31. This action is going to get better and better. So Louis' car keeps going from manual to AI controlled. You could have paused the game looking at the race director, seeing if anyone around him has penalties. I don't know if it's allowed personally, but I think that's what he's doing. So everyone, the 17 drivers in this field, are now all up behind the safety car. And everyone will of course be saving as much fuel, saving all their ERS. And they'll be steadying themselves to go green flag racing, possibly at the end of this lap, if not definitely at the end of the next lap as well. All 3 races tonight in One Hub Racing have been affected one way or another by the rain. It looks like a majority of this race is going to be run in the wet conditions. Oh, and Hamilton there has made contact with Josh. That's a 5-second penalty. So the man that was pulled into the driver's press office, if you like, before this race and was asked a stinging question about can you try and keep it clean and stop picking up penalties, and he said I'll try my best. Hamilton picks up a 5-second penalty for colliding with another car under safety car conditions, which can be a bit of a derp thing to do. So unfortunately his reputation precedes him, and Hamilton continues to have his wayward driving do the talking for him. Safety car in this lap. The lights go out on top of the Mercedes, and now the cars will be AI controlled somewhat, but Louis still has control of when he can go green, and also have control over weaving left to right, stopping and starting as well, trying to generate some tyre life and tyre temperature into those 4 wheels that all of these cars are relying on so much to give them the grip that they need around these corners, around this very tricky circuit. It's tricky enough in the dry, it's very difficult in the wet. It'll be all eyes on Louis when he decides to drop the hammer. And Midnight and Lakitu want to stay with him. Skeven looking good in P4. Struggled early on the soft tyres, but now it's an even playing field. We might see some of the quicker guys fall back, some of the slower guys move forward as they get better or worse at these changing conditions. Dry or wet setups for these drivers. I reckon most will have gone for a wet setup. Louis drops the pedal to the metal. Away we go. We're green flag racing at the start of lap 6 of 31. So much has happened already. So much more is going to happen as all the drivers filtered away onto the start finish line. The spray is kicked up, making it very difficult for visibility for those in the midfield. But Louis is in the best position. He's got a clean track in front of him. Midnight getting a bit squirrely on exit as well. Nikitu trying to stay close. Hamilton out of the race. I think he's lost it there, turn 1, turn 2. His car's still moving, I think. So Hamilton then immediately retires. Skeven in P4, Rafa in 5th, Toxic close behind in 6th as well. We're going to see any moves down into the braking zone. It's the best opportunity to try and make a move whilst the field is all bunched up. But I think everyone is just playing nice somewhat, trying to get used to these conditions. You don't want to snatch a brake and damage your car or put it in the wall at this stage of the race. There's going to be more retirements and more incidents, I feel, as this race goes on. So Harry then, the sole remaining Haas driver at the moment in P12, behind Ollie Flavel's Red Bull. Struggling for traction a little bit. Hamilton leaves the session. We're 2 down from the 18 that started. Only about 20% of the way in this race. This midfield very, very close together. Josh managing to get past Curran, who's really struggling tonight in both the dry and the wet. But Louis leads, pulling away slowly from Midnight in turn. Now a second clear of Larkin. Skeven keeping a close eye on proceedings ahead. Rafa very close to the Alfa Romeo as well. That's a corner back there. That's very tricky to get right, certainly in these conditions. You can't really see the apex until you're on top of it. Now through a very slow, clumsy sector 3 section with its 90-degree turns underneath the bridge as well. You want to stay away from those curves as much as you can. You don't want to unsettle the back end, spin the car round into the wall. It's been a very gingerly taken first lap for racing speed on these intermediate tyres. These drivers are still getting to grips with what grip there is out there. As Rafa just runs a little wide, but Toxic's not close enough to take advantage of it. Westy 6-7 tenths back as well. White Fountain in 8th. The perennial back marker, and he won't fake me for calling in. Up the inside comes Ashbest as well into turn 1. White Fountain does see him. Ashbest is still there though, coming into 3. Little bit of contact with Vittorio Rosso, pushing him slightly wide. The side by side, but Ash gets a better traction out of it as well. White Fountain's going to have to slot back in line. So Racing Point, who suffered a disconnection in qualifying, now slowly moving up the field, up into P8. And Khalifa then making his first start tonight in the Pinnacle tier. Might fancy a move into the braking zone, but he's too far back unless he's big, bold and brave. Nice line through there as well. These guys in the midfield taking it easy. Ollie's dropped back a little bit. I'm sure he'll manage to be able to catch back up. I think there'll be a bit of a queue possibly forming behind White Fountain sooner rather than later, but he'll be enjoying life inside the top 10 at the moment. 2 drivers yet to score this season. That's not including the 3 making their debuts tonight. Skeven is one of them, who only joined last week, so this is his second race. But White Fountain has been here since the first race. One of those guys that have been here since day 1. He's the only one yet to score, so he'll be desperate for a point or 2 tonight. But if you're going to pick up points, you first have to finish the race. But he's doing well in 9th at the moment. But as you can see there, the train is slowly starting to form behind him. All these guys taking it nice and easy so far, but not risking too much. And I'm just wondering there if I've had a possible disconnection or not. The screen just went blue. I got a bit worried. The stream is still going. People are still watching, so I'm not too sure what happened there. Hopefully my connection holds out. It's very rare that it drops, so I think we're still going, so that's good. I'll keep talking then. Lap 8 of 31. Louis still leads 2.2 ahead of Midnight now. Lakitu dropping back a little bit, as is Skeven. And the second Williams of Rafa is giving Skeven some food for thought. Following closely in the wheel tracks. The rain is getting heavier. We might need a change onto the full wet tyres. Possibly the Inters will be comfortable enough to get these guys to the end. Gavin comes in. Where is Tim? Unfortunately, he's dropped down a tier. As soon as I say that, Jess has just literally come on to say the exact same thing. So Tim has dropped down a tier, and he has been replaced by Khalifa, currently running in P10. Skeven in 4th then. Yellow flag in sector 1. There's a Racing Point facing the wrong way. That's Scott Bugner. He's managed to get it spun round. I think there's possibly damage on the front left. No, looks okay. Or we're going to get a clearer shot. No, he has got damage on that front wing. So unfortunately for Scott, that's going to require a pit stop, because it's really difficult to get around this circuit with a loss of front downforce. But Louis won't care about that. He's carrying on. 2.6 ahead of Midnight now. Lakitu 3rd, Skeven 4th, Rafa 5th, Toxic 2 seconds back. But he's got a bit of clean air behind him as well. Westy in 7th. Haven't spoken too much about the Renault drivers so far this season. They've sort of been doing a job quietly in the background, but he'll be happy with running P7 at the moment. Ash in 8th, and White Fountain still holding on in 9th, and he's over a second clear of Khalifa as well. So this train that was beginning to form behind a Toro Rosso driver may not be. So maybe White Fountain's got a bit of pace in these intermediate conditions, and he's a net legit P9. So good luck to him if he can keep it clean and score his first points of the season. Khalifa possibly struggling in a little bit deep there into the right hander. That's going to give Harry possible opportunity underneath the bridge, but it's a really difficult, tricky place to overtake. As Arthur look, making that Haas car loom large in the Alfa Romeo's rear view mirrors, trying to unsettle Khalifa somewhat, trying to get him straying off line again. There's very little grip off the racing line around here. Certainly if you clip those curves just a bit too much, he gets very close to the outside wall, and Khalifa's dancing around the track a little bit. Needs to compose himself and calm down, push on, try to close that gap to White Fountain ahead. Ollie slowly clawing his way back up the field. It'll be a disappointing show so far from Ollie. You'd be expecting better from himself, certainly as his teammates running in the dizzying heights of P2. Cohen picks up a 3-second time penalty for exceeding track limits one too many times. Scott, meanwhile, with that damaged front wing, is carrying on. So he's going to try and brave it out there, but he will be losing time to the cars in front of him. Larkin in P14 has got Josh very close to the back of him. You can see that the visibility is very poor. Westy in 7th also picks up a 3-second time penalty. Late on the brakes from Josh. No chance of an overtake though, and he gets it wrong on exit as well, so that dropped him back a little bit. So these guys lower down the order, very close together, but keeping it respectful and clean. It's just a case of braving it out, trying to survive to the end, but you can see there really is a bit of a split between these guys. The top 8 sort of racing away in their own little battles, and then now White Fountain already 4 seconds back, exploring the limits of grip. Khalifa's recovered and is pushing on now. The top 5, 6, 7, 8 all splitting away into their own little groups, and they're all starting to build back up again behind White Fountain in 9th. Rain continues to fall here at Singapore, almost at 1/3 distance. So much has happened already. So much could potentially happen as well into the future of this race. So Toxic in 6th. Good strong season so far for the McLaren driver. He joined about halfway through last season in the prestige tier that's now being made redundant as we've dropped a tier down from 4 to 3, and he struggled at first but did pick up some decent point finishes towards the end of the season. He got accustomed to life in the top tier, remains in the top tier this season, and very much has been very impressive with his performance. Finished P3 on track last week at Austria, but the guys just ahead of him had penalties, so he inherited P1. And he was incredibly delighted to take down his first win of the season. Currently running P3 in the standings, and he'll be looking for a strong result tonight here. But our championship leader is comfortable out front at the moment, almost 4 seconds clear of Midnight. He's on his own on track. Lakitu in P3 is nearly on his own. Skeven is about half a second back, but Rafa continuing to pile on the pressure to Skeven here. Very, very close to the Alfa Romeo's rear wing as we're now negotiating round sector 2. No real opportunities to overtake round here. In fact, the next opportunity will be in the braking zone for the right-hander at the end of sector 2. All through here it's pretty much one-line traffic. You can try and do a Massa and dive bomb it up the inside here into the left-hander, but you have to be a lot closer than you are now. And you need full trust and faith in the car ahead of you to see you, otherwise he's going to pinch you into the inside wall, and your race is pretty much going to be over with damage. So Rafa drops back, then catches up again in the braking zone. Such is the yo-yo effect here. Oh, Rafa's a bit deep there, and Toxic unfortunately wasn't close enough to take advantage. It's a tricky right-hander, that is. It really is a little unsighted until you're pretty much on top of it. And plenty of cars in the past have outbroke themselves and clipped the wall there. So White Fountain in 9th continues to drop back from Ashbest, and that group is now slowly starting to form up behind him again. Ollie right in the thick of it in P12. It'll be a while then until we see the second round of pit stops. Toxic in 6th picks up a 3-second time penalty for exceeding track limits, so penalties might change things here tonight. Certainly if we have a late race safety car, which will bunch the field up. These drivers now will be focusing on trying to keep it clean and consistent, move their way up the field if they get an opportunity to, which is what Josh is doing. P13 past Larkin, who's coming into the pit, so I'm not too sure if that's to fix damage or not. Cohen also in as well. Scott is going to struggle on with that damaged front wing, so he'll gain 2 positions. We'll have a look at Larkin, and is he having a front wing change? Well, the team weren't ready for him, so this was an incredibly late call by the McLaren driver. The team had to get ready whilst he was already in the pit box. They are doing a front wing change, so Larkin lost a lot of time with that. Cohen is having a second front wing change as well. Their 2 pit stops are now done with, but I don't think they'll be able to get to the end on that set of intermediate tyres unless they're very, very brave. So unfortunately then those 2 have now dropped well off the midfield. They're going to find they're going tough here to get somewhat of a decent result. But Louis continues on. Nice overboard shot here as we see that rain pound down onto the Marina Bay circuit. And Louis keeping it nice and consistent, doing his own thing, which he does each and every week. leading comfortably at the front. 4.5 seconds now ahead of Midnight, who in turn is 3.7 ahead of Larkin. So the top three, Lakito I should say. So the top three very comfortable, but Skeven is hanging on there and has found a few temps in the last couple of laps, and he's dragging Rafa along with him as well. And then 6th down to 9th. Very much spread, 2 to 3 seconds here and there. And then 9th has got a group of cars behind him as well. So these guys are settling into a rhythm now, making sure they keep it clean, keep away from those walls. And Rafa would like to try and get past Skeven sooner rather than later, but Skeven's driving a good race so far, keeping it clean between the white lines, and he's found a couple of attempts this lap, closing up to Lakitu. So I'm not sure if Lakitu made a mistake in that lap, or Skeven's now just finding his bearings and increasing his pace. But Louis and Midnight then very comfortable in P1 and P2. It's another penalty for Cohen. His race is going from bad to worse. So Rafa then, a couple of attempts behind Skeven, and he'll close up again in the braking zone. And I think Rafa's just comfortable at the moment, just following Skeven around. Prime Racing team comes on stream to say hi, good evening. Hope you're enjoying your Friday night viewing here. You've got a yellow flag in sector 3. My betting is Cohen's being off the circuit again. So the top 6, 7 and 8 I'd say seem very comfortable. The gaps seem to be rather consistent, although Midnight slowly pulling away from Lakitu, and in turn Louis is pulling away from Midnight as well. Oh, as Rafa gets a bit sideways there. Oh, yellow flags in sector 3. Cohen has come into the pits and immediately retired and left the session, so his awful evening, I should say, has come to a premature end. He's thrown in the towel. Lap 12 of 31. Josh in 13th picks up a time penalty. That won't change things too much as it stands. And we lose our third driver. Still yellow flags in sector 1. Cohen's car disappears off screen. We go back to green flag racing. So lap 12 of 31. When are we expecting these guys back in? Won't be for a while. They'll try and judge it really to get in and get back out on another set of intermediate tyres if it requires. Around about what will be the halfway point between when they made the change onto the intermediates, which was around lap 4 and lap 5. So they might be looking at around about lap 18, possibly 18, 19, to try and have 2 even stints on the intermediate tyres. That is, of course, if it remains intermediate running, which I believe it will. So Lakitu's found a bit of pace. He's found a couple of attempts on that lap. He's now bridged that gap back up to around about 1.5 seconds between himself and Skeven. Rafa still holding on, just under 1 second away from Skeven. Quite happy to follow in the wheel tracks. Toxic Tomato as well, on his own on circuit in P6. Same for Westy in 7th. Same for Ashbest in 8th. Those guys separated by around 2 to 2.5 seconds. And it's White Fountain back in 9th. Still running in 9th. Still keeping it clean. Looking good. Possibly for his first points of the season. Just behind him, Khalifa dropped back somewhat. A second and a half back. And he's got Harry and Ollie Flavel behind. But Josh and Scott Bugner back in the pits again to fix more accident damage, as Larkin gains a couple of positions. Lap 13 of 31. Cohen comes on saying, spun 3 times, hate rain and this track. Me and rain doesn't go well. Unfortunately, sometimes these things happen. If you don't like the circuit and you don't like wet weather and you get both at the same time together, it really gives you a bit of a headache of a race. And unfortunately, Cohen has bit the bullet early on. 1/3 distance, has thrown in the towel, and I'm sure he'll be back in a couple of weeks' time to do it all over again and try to save somewhat his season. But yeah, unfortunate for Cohen then. Too many mistakes, no confidence, hated the conditions, hated the track. Decides rather than pound round for the next 40 odd minutes, he'd rather just retire early, enjoy the rest of his evening. Ollie Flavel in 12th, trying to give the pressure to Harry, who in turn is trying to put a bit of pressure on Khalif. But White Fountain running a very good race in P9 at the moment, desperate for his first points of the season. Same for Skeven as well, but it's still early days for his season. He only joined last week, but he's running well in P4. That gap to Lakitu now underneath the second. But Louis and Midnight, the class of the field so far in P1 and P2. So almost approaching the midway point of this race. And it's now pretty much every car is just into a rhythm, finding their lines, finding their apexes, finding their braking points, trying not to go sideways into the braking zone like Rafa's done just there. So far it's been relatively clean by these guys in these conditions. We've seen a few guys towards the back of the field, like of Larkin, Josh and Scott Bugner, make mistakes. Cohen retired just a couple of laps ago as well, but most of these guys seem to be pretty confident and are capable in these conditions, and it is just a case of just picking your lines, picking your moment, keeping cool, calm, collected, maintaining the focus. These eyes of all these drivers be wide open at the moment, looking at the curbs, making sure they don't make any mistakes, don't bottom the car out, don't overstep, don't stamp on the throttle, don't slam on the brakes. Make sure you pick your moment to turn in as well. Such a tricky circuit to get right, such a challenging circuit as well. It really takes a lot out of the drivers, and then when you factor in these difficult wet conditions, these guys, if they manage even to get to the end, I think some of these guys will be breathing a huge sigh of relief. It is a challenge just to get to the end. There's plenty of drivers out there, including myself, that, you know, it's a victory if you just finish the race, let alone get a positive result. But some of these guys are experienced league racers. Like of Louis been doing this for a few years as well. The same for Midnight, Skeven, Ollie Flevel as well. These guys have been racing for several years now. They know what it's all about. They know what's required of them. So they're used to races like this. Some of the newer guys to league racing now will find the going tough. The top five very confident at the moment. All pretty much following in the wheel tracks. No real major mistakes. Yeah, the back end steps out every now and again. That's expected in conditions like this. The Toxic in 6 has now certainly dropped off the back of the top 5, and you can see on the track map there's not really little battles everywhere, but there are small groups forming. You know, you've got that big one there behind White Fountain and Khalifa. In fact, there's 4 cars there very close together. The Toxic, Westy and Ashbest all separated by a couple of seconds, as they have been pretty much since the safety car went back in. So all these guys, as you can tell from the interval times, they're running very similar lap times, similar on pace. This White Fountain then that continues to drop back, now 10 seconds behind Ashbest, but him and Khalifa seem to be on relatively same pace. That gap has been around about a second to a second and a half for the last few laps, and Khalifa's doing a decent job really holding back both Harry and Ollie, and Harry getting a little bit of sideways action as he moves up the gears, so there's very little grip out there all around the circuit, even in a straight line. Harry again just sliding and kicking out that back end. Ollie will notice this, he'll make a mark of it, he'll see where Harry's weak, where Harry's strong. And I think if Ollie manages to get past Harry, he'll be able to put the pressure on Khalifa, get past, then possibly White Fountain, and slowly start to move his way up the order, because he's being held up by these guys. But in conditions like this, and with overtaking opportunities so few and far between, it really is difficult to move up the order. You sort of have to almost rely on the car in front making a mistake rather than you putting the pressure on. There are some pit stops happening. Ollie is deciding to come in now and almost makes a mistake coming into the pit lane. Very tricky entrance and entry and exit here into the pit lane. With the 37 mile an hour, you have to make sure you don't speed. You'll lose so much time. So Ashbest and Toxic Tomato in the pits, and I believe Ashbest has managed to get a jump on the McLaren driver as well. So that is a position change as they come in and out on their second set of intermediate tyres. 2 pit stops now completed for these guys. Ollie also back out on the intermediate tyres, so I thought possibly around about 17, 18 will be the lap they're in, but as some are pitting in now, we'll see what the leaders will be doing. This is pretty much okay territory for these guys to get in. There'll be about 15 laps for these guys to go comfortably on the intermediate tyres, but some of these guys might be burning up those rear tyres at a quicker rate than others. Comes down to setup, driving options, pad, wheel, all the usual arguments and discussions that drivers have. Not everyone's going to have the same tyre life and tyre wear rates. Yellow flag in sector 2. There's a Red Bull going very slowly. That's Ollie, so he's come out the pits and immediately gone off the circuit on the exit of turn 5. No damage by the looks of it on the front wing, but he would have certainly lost a lot of time. So that's bad news there for Ollie. He was probably looking to get the jump over Harry, Khalifa and White Fountain. That probably won't happen now unless they make a mistake themselves. Louis not pitting at the end of this lap. The gap between him and Midnight now well over 8 seconds. Midnight is carrying on for another lap, and in fact looking... Oh, I just thought there for a second, looked like the rain had stopped, but looking at this camera angle you can clearly see that rain is still pounding down hard. Lakito, Skeven have carried on. Rafa I think is in the pits. He is. Rafa is in the pits, disappeared from behind the Alfa Romeo Skeven, so now he's coming into the pits. Possibly could have been a little bit discussion between him and Louis, as Westy comes in from P6 as well. I think Rafa might be able to get out ahead of that little trio between White Fountain, Khalifa and Harry B. He needs to. He doesn't want to be held up by any of them. They are now pounding down the pit straight, and this could be bad news for Rafa. He doesn't want to be behind him. I think he is going to be behind him. White Fountain and Khalifa just flashed past, as Josh, unfortunately, I think has crashed. Indeed he has. We've got yellow flags out there. A virtual safety car will jump on board with Ollie, see where Josh's car is. There it is, in the wall. He's gone too deep into the left-hander, clouted the barrier on the right-hand side. His car is beyond repair. So unfortunately then, we lose our fourth driver. Virtual safety car is out. Good opportunity for anyone in the final sector to come into the pits. Harry was in the pits, so he might have gained a couple of seconds there. There's no one else really close to it. Ollie's just been in the pits. Scott pitted a few laps ago. So unfortunately this hasn't really worked out too much. Everyone's got to drive to a delta. So where's Rafa and all this? Rafa in 7th. I don't think he's going to be gaining any time. In fact, the VSC disappears as soon as it turns up. We're now over halfway into the second half of this race. So I think we've had 2 virtual safety cars and a full safety car so far. And yellows do sometime breed yellows. More and more people tuning in. Good evening to each and every single one of you. Thank you for dropping by for this Pinnacle tier race around Singapore. For some of you that have joined in the last few minutes and not too sure what's happened really at the start, well, it was Lakitu on pole position, started on the soft tyres. His teammate Zach was in second. Zach was in third. Midnight was in second. Some of the drivers inside the top 10 started on the mediums, expecting the rain to arrive about the 20-minute mark. In fact, it was around halfway around lap 2. We started having the rain fall down. We had a safety car come out after Zach lost it on the exit of turn 6, threw away P3 with a terminal DNF. Safety car came out, everyone came in for the intermediate tyres, and we're currently going through the second pit stop window now for these guys. Midnight, Lakitu and Skeven from P2, 3, 4 all in the pits now for a fresh set of intermediate tyres. And poor old Rafa then would have lost a lot of time. We're just looking now, where's Skeven and Lakitu and all this? He might actually get the jump on them. Look at this, where's Lakitu and all this? On board contact, a little bit of contact there with Rafa, and Rafa, even though he would have lost a little bit of time behind the likes of Khalifa, Harry and White Fountain, has still managed to get the jump on both Lakitu and Skeven. So Rafa is looking at a net P3 here. Good points for Williams, as neither Mercedes drivers here tonight, and Rafa is now putting the fight on White Fountain around the outside, and I think White Fountain will fight this too much. Lakitu will want to get past this Toro Rosso as quickly as possible. Skeven cuts the corner, picks up a 3-second penalty. So the guys that will be running a net 3, 4 and 5 have now exchanged positions after the second pit stop. Lickle Blocks comes on. Hello Alex, good evening Lickle Blocks. Hope you're enjoying the stream. So Rafa has managed to jump Lakitu and Skeven by pitting a lap earlier. Westy then remains in P7. Ash in 8th has managed to get the jump on Toxic Tomato, and Harry now in clean air. Khalifa's lost a lot of time. Khalifa was ahead of Harry, so I think Khalifa's possibly had a front wing change. I have missed it, unfortunately, looking at the battle further towards the front of the field. So Harry has managed to jump Khalifa, and we're waiting to see if Harry can get the jump on White Fountain as well, because he'll be losing time having to defend from Lakitu and Skeven. Toxic Tomato there is now back up behind Ash Best. That was a position change in the pits. Toxic Tomato was a couple of seconds clear, but Ash has managed to jump him. And further at the front, Wesley is clear in P7, but Lakitu there desperate to try and either get past or hope that White Fountain makes a pit stop, because the Toro Rosso driver is out of position at the moment. I'm going to betting it he's going to probably pit at the end of this lap. Indeed he doesn't, he carries on. I would have probably jumped in. You don't want to be spending too much time looking in your mirrors defending from quicker guys behind. You want to be left alone to focus on your own race. And Rafa, look at that, on this lap alone has found 2.5 seconds over the Toro Rosso, and this would be really bad news for Lakitu if he wants to try and claim back that P3. Rafa is going to slowly disappear, might start to work a little bit on closing that gap to Midnight as well. So P1 and the P2 for the Williams team is not over yet, so we'll keep one eye on what Rafa is doing compared to lap times with Midnight. But White Fountain holding on in P4. Here comes Lakitu though, he's got half an opportunity. Is he going to send it? He doesn't. Skeven behind as well, watching on hoping that Lakitu makes a mistake and the Alfa Romeo driver can nip past up into P4. White Fountain is out of position. I believe he's the only driver that is yet to complete 2 stops. Indeed, every other driver has stopped at least twice. The league rules for every shortened season that One Hub does is all drivers have to make 2 stops, no matter the distance, no matter the weather. Ollie retires from the race. We'll try and jump on board with Scott if we can. There's Ollie's damaged beyond repair Red Bull on the right hand side of the circuit, and it's our 3rd virtual safety car. Where's White Fountain in all this? He's probably too far away to take advantage of this. If he was closer to the pit lane, it would have been the perfect opportunity for him to get in and out and complete his 2nd stop. Yes, so until I was rudely interrupted by Ollie binning it into the wall. With the shortened seasons, and it is only 10 races, this is race number 5 of season 15, all drivers have to pit at least twice, no matter what the weather conditions are. If it's a full wet race and you only get 2 sets of wet tyres, well, it's up to you. Do a lap on the intermediates or use a set of wet tyres twice. Lickle Blocks, how's Lakitu for warnings and penalties? I haven't seen anything pop up, and as tradition, I never check the race director to see what's warnings and penalties. I like to let the action flow, call it as I see it, and see if the positions change at the end. There are a few 3-second penalties out there. Lakitu possibly has one. I don't think he does, so we'll just have to see how the rest of this race pans out. White Fountain does pull off into the pits as the VSC period ends. It's now 3 virtual safety car periods and 1 full safety car period we've had so far in this race. There'll probably be another before the end of this race. We've lost 5 of the 18 that started. Harry picks up a 3-second time penalty for ETLing just a bit too much. So we'll jump on board with Harry. This will be crucial then. He was very close to White Fountain, who now drops back into the P9 he had before the pit stop, and I think White Fountain is going to drop behind both Harry and Larkin here. Khalifa is a long way back. In fact, he's coming across the line now, but White Fountain is out ahead. Ollie leaves the session, and White Fountain, who was running P9 before the 2nd round of stops, now unfortunately drops down into P11. So the movers and shakers in that 2nd round of stops is Rafa has managed to get the jump on both Lakitu and Skeeven. In fact, so Rafa's now up into P3, Lakitu 4th, Skeeven in 5th. Westy holds on to P6. Ashbest has managed to get the jump on Toxic Tomato into 7th, and both Harry and Larkin have managed to jump White Fountain into 9th and 10th. So that's it then. No one else needs to stop unless they cream it into the wall and have to fix pit for accident damage, fix a front wing or a puncture, whatnot, and this will pretty much be it now. Last 10 or 11 laps, straight shootout for all of these guys to the end. There are gaps out there between some of these guys. There's a few battles out there. Lakitu and Skeeven very close together in a battle for 4th. Ashbest and Toxic Tomato close together in 7th and 8th. And 9th and 10th only separated by half a second as well. But Louis continues to extend this lead here. 10.5 seconds ahead of Midnight. Rafa is slowly starting to claw the gap back. We might as well look at the fastest lap so far. So that's held by Louis, and I don't think that's going to be changing any time soon in these difficult conditions. So 41.589 will see Louis claim the extra World Championship point for fastest lap. And in bracket 2, which is going to be out of the classified runners between 11th down, at the moment that's only 11th, 12th and 13th, the fastest lap is held at the moment by White Fountain. So if the order stays as it is and everyone finishes, White Fountain will score his first championship point of the season. It's a rule brought in by One Hub to stop the guys at the back of the field basically retiring and calling it quits with a few laps to go if they've got nothing to race for. In dry conditions, you might see 1 or 2 of them pit with a few laps to go for a fresh set of soft tyres and try to get a fastest lap World Championship point for that bracket, but no one will be pitting and going for that. Certainly now we're running in the intermediate conditions. Those fastest laps were set in the dry pretty much, I think, by the end of lap 2, I think it was, when all these lap times were set. So Louis will definitely pick up a point for the fastest lap in the top 10, and as it stands, as long as White Fountain finishes this race, he will pick up a point for finishing outside the top 10 for his fastest lap as well. So White Fountain may very well still claim a point after tonight's event. Midnight in 2nd, still losing time. Rafa is gaining, but there's only a couple of tenths a lap, and as things stand, it won't be good enough to make it a Williams 1-2. Lakitu definitely has now dropped off 6 seconds away, so Rafa clearly was the fastest driver between him, Lakitu and Skeeven. Skeeven holding on just a second between himself and the Ferrari driver. 4.2 back to Westy, finds himself on his own again. Ashbest still has Toxic Tomato, trying desperately to claim back that P7 he lost in the pits. Harry 13 seconds back. Larkin just on the outside here, coming down into the heavy braking zone for the right-hander. Harry defends it nicely, and Larkin will try to force the Haas driver into a mistake. This is not a place to overtake, but Harry just about sees him, gives him a bit of space, and Larkin really piling on the pressure here. Harry will be spending more time looking in his mirrors than he will out front. But there's pretty much one-way traffic through here. No way through unless you force your way through. And Larkin will have to be a little cautious here. He'll have to bide his time, pick his moment. Try to force Harry into a mistake if you can, but the last thing you do is outbrake yourself and hit the back of him and damage your front wing. So Larkin inside the top 10, looking for points on debut. Khalifa and Scott Bugner making their first starts in the Pinnacle tier. Currently running in P12 and P13. Need a little bit of luck if they're going to get inside the top 10. Lap 22 of 31. The order you see on the left is the true order. Everyone has now completed their second pit stops. And we'll have a look at the position changes as well since the start of this race. Nikita and Skeven have lost a couple, but Louis and Rafa have gained 4 positions each. Started inside the top 10, around about 5th and 7th I think it was for Louis and Rafa, both qualified on the medium tyres. West Event is the biggest gainer in this race so far, started 11th, now up into P6. And with all this going on, Toxic Tomato remains in the position he started. A few drivers qualified high up have dropped out, so most of the field have gained positions since the start of this race. So we'll bring up the tyre graph then, just so we can keep one eye on how these guys are going on the intermediates. Larkin has already completed 11 laps on these medium tyres, so he'll have to complete nearly 20 laps on them. So his wear is going to be difficult, really, towards the end of this race, which is why he's probably putting the pressure on Harry now, try to get ahead and then defend in the last few laps. Everyone pretty much comfortable to get to the end. Lap 23 of 31. These guys have still got about another 50 odd minutes to concentrate to get this race done. So massive respect to every driver that will eventually finish this race. You might lose one or two more. One momentary lapse in concentration can see your race end in the wall. And this race will pretty much go for an hour, like the podium tier did tonight. In fact, I think that went for just over an hour. The precision tier, not too sure how long that went, but it was certainly weather affected as well. And Singapore is traditionally the longest race on the calendar, and with the changeable conditions and the odd safety car here and there, these drivers pretty much racing flat out for an hour, and it's so difficult to keep the concentration high as well. One little mistake and it's all thrown away. We've already seen 5 drivers out. All 5 have had varying different moments in this race. Hamilton and Zach both crashed. Cohen had multiple spins, gave up in the pits, and Josh and Ollie have also put it into the wall as well. 18 started, only 13 still running. Both the Mercedes drivers of Paris and Danny not here tonight. Danny said before the race, a few hours before the race, that he wouldn't be competing tonight. Not too sure what's happened to Paris. So as it stands in the constructors, Williams currently lead the way, 15 points ahead of Mercedes, and it is pretty much a 2-horse race between them two. And at the moment it looks like that Louis is going to be picking up 26 points, 25 for the race win, 1 for the fastest lap. Rafa with a further 15. 41 points will see their gap extend to 56. In the Drivers' Championship, well, it depends where Toxic Tomato finishes in all of this, really, but it doesn't look like he's going to be able to jump Danny unless about the top 6 basically retire from this race. So Louis will probably hold around about a 30-point lead, 31 point lead, I think, once this is all over and done with, if, of course, Louis can get to the end and win this race. So Larkin then still putting the pressure on the Haas of Harry, and his sister teammate Toxic Tomato in 8th, still putting the pressure on the Racing Point of Ash Best. You can see up there as well, Skeven has dropped back a little bit from the back of Lakita. That gap is now to 1.3, and Rafa and Midnight, that little not really a battle, but I was expecting Rafa to close up a little bit. He's doing it about a 10th a lap, so as it stands at the moment, the top probably 5, I'd say, are pretty secure in positions. In fact, I'd say the top 6 are probably really secure in positions. Yeah, one mistake from Lakitu might give Skeven half an opportunity, but I won't be expecting Lakitu to make a mistake. But this battle here for 7th, and the one behind for 9th as well, could still change. And White Fountain will be hoping and praying that he can finish inside the top 10, pick up his first point of the season. As it stands, he will pick up a point for the fastest lap. For those drivers classified outside of the top 10, but I think every driver would rather finish inside the top 10 than be given a bonus point for setting the fastest lap. And Khalifa and Scott Bugner. Scott Bugner's had a poor race on debut. He's made a couple of pit stops off sequence and he's clipped the wall a few times. Khalifa hasn't found the going tough, but he's certainly struggled in this race and these conditions. And Rafa leaves the session. Wow, Rafa, so our man in P3 has suffered a disconnection somewhat. And all of a sudden, he might start tumbling down the order. Now, the AI is run at either 80 or 90%. It's different for the tiers. I'm not too sure which one it is for the Pinnacle tier, but it is high. So his AI car will still go around at a relatively strong pace. But we'll have to keep one eye on the Delta times. Khalifa picks up a 3-second penalty. That really won't change anything at this stage. So Rafa is still 6.2 behind Midnight. I'll be expecting that to increase. This could be an opportunity for Lakitu then. You would have seen that at the bottom of the screen. Rafa loses connection. Ash Best and Toxic Tomato are fighting now over 7th and 8th. Toxic trying the cutback, but Ash does a very sensible thing and just lets off the throttle a little bit mid-corner there to try and stop it. And now he's going to give the McLaren a bit of a squeeze. Difficult to keep it clean and concise when it's conditions like this. But they have managed to do the very best they can. And Ash keeps a hold of that 7th place for now. So where's Lakitu and Rafa? There's Rafa there, so look at that. It's certainly not 5.7 seconds. The interval times forever have frozen for Rafa, and if Rafa doesn't get back into this session sooner rather than later, he's going to slowly start falling down the order. Bad, crucial timing there for him to lose connection. He was looking safe and assured for the final podium spot, and he'll be desperate to get back into this session. And look at this, Lakitu then. He's going to be passed in the next couple of corners. And Lakitu will be looking at a podium spot here as he gains on that disconnected, ghosted Williams. Skeven will be looking as well, thinking P4's on here, boys. And everyone else will have noticed that Rafa's left the session. There's positions and points to be gained now. Rafa drops out of the podium positions, and Skeven will be able to get past as well in the next couple of corners. Terrible luck for the Williams driver. Hopefully he can get back in. Even if he finishes inside the points, if the rule is if he's disconnected and his disconnected car crosses the line, he will be removed from the results. Even if Rafa somehow, even if his car does stay inside the top 10, he will be removed from the final results. Toxic Tomato extends again. I believe that's now 2 lots of 3-second penalties. That's 6 for him, so he's desperate now to try and get past Ash Best for P7, because it could very well turn into P6. I don't know why he turned in there on Ash Best. He was clearly there on the apex, so I think Toxic is starting to get a little bit of a red mist. He's obviously pushing the Racing Point as much as he can, and he's starting to make some mistakes. He's oh so close to that rear wing, and I can see an instant. I can see it happening between these two. Ash Best is doing nothing wrong at the moment. He's clearly the slower of the two, but not by much. And Ash got the jump on the McLaren driver in the pits, because originally he was about 2 to 2.5 seconds back. Rafa, meanwhile, was now his car's circulating in 3rd. Points are to be had for these guys, and if it carries on like this, White Fountain will pick up a legit P10 and a legit World Championship point. Larkin will get points on debut as well. Skeven is definitely going to be scoring his first points for the season, as long as he doesn't cream it into the wall. So we'll have to see where Rafa is on circuit. Westy can see the disconnected car. Westy will be hoping and praying. No offence to Rafa here, but he'll be hoping and praying. Stay disconnected for another couple of laps. Just let me get past and pull a gap before you come back. And then it'll be up to Ashbest and Toxic Tomato to see if they can close the gap and get past as well. This race is not over yet. Just look at the dominating performance that Louis has done yet again. And remind you yet again, the kid is an alien. He's on a pad, not a wheel. Yes, Singapore in wet conditions sometimes is better on the pad than it is on the wheel, but more often than not, most circuits, the wheel does have an advantage. Comes down to driving styles, of course, and everything else, and the setups you have in the car, and generally how good you are at the game anyway. But Louis has always been at the top of the pile. He's at the top of all the top tiers and all the leagues that he races in. He's a multiple champion everywhere he goes. Toxic up the inside will jump on board at the racing point as the McLaren gives him the squeeze on exit, and Ash will have to give it up at the next corner. And now Toxic Tomato is finally clear, finally up to P7, but he has at least 6 seconds, I think, worth of penalties. Ashbest, I'm not too sure he's got any. There's a few out there that do have penalties, and as I said before, I don't check. I like the surprise at the end, so Toxic needs to put the hammer down now and pull away if he can. Westy is now all but secure in P5. He'll get Rafa here, I think, on the exit. So Rafa then still not back into the session, and he's now down in P6. In fact, look at that, the AI car still pushing, still trying to get the overtake down. Westy will be hoping he can just go away, just buzz off and leave me alone. So Westy then now up into P5. And Toxic just 8 seconds back. Ash holding on. Further back we've got Harry in P9. Larkin still pushing. So one McLaren has managed to get the move done he wanted. The other one is still trying. And Louis then 18.5 seconds clear of midnight. It's been a good race, strong race by Louis. One of the favourites coming into Singapore. He's gone well here before. Second last season out of the 6 or 8 finishes we had. It was a bit of a crash fest last season at Singapore. This one has been sort of what you would expect, really. A few people making unscheduled pit stops to fix damage. But the last 10 laps or so, everyone's pretty much been circulating at their own pace, doing what they have. Yes, we've lost 5 drivers at the 18 that started. But all things considered, you know, losing 5 drivers at a circuit like this, in conditions like this, is probably to be expected. And it's another strong result, race from midnight as well. Shaky start to the season. He had a very, very good last season as well, moving up from the Racing Point to the Red Bull and carrying on his ever impressive performances. This season, the first 3 races, he struggled. Last week with the podium, and this week looking good for a P2 as well. Lakitu now up into P3, finally managing to get past Rafa's disconnected car. Skeven still holding on in 4th, and he's less than a second away. So one mistake from Lakitu might give the Alfa Romeo driver an opportunity to get onto the podium in what will only be his 2nd race in the Pinnacle tier. Westy safe in 5th. Rafa continues to drop back. Toxic looking good now to possibly take that P6. And look at that, he's already pulled away. 2.5 in the last lap over Ashbest. Keeps it up, and he might just be able to keep that position ahead of the Racing Point. Harry and Larkin still close together in 9th and 10th. White Fountain, Khalifa and Scott Bugner 11th, 12th and 13th. Sort of circulating at their own pace on their own. Just hoping and praying to get to the end of this race. But Louis has driven a fantastic race, as he usually does, leading at the front, doing what he does best. Advantage was given to him when Danny mentioned that he wouldn't be racing tonight. So unfortunately, as we reach the halfway point already this season, 5 races down, 5 to go. Next week's the charity event, so I won't be here. And Louis will go into the mid-season break with a nice healthy gap to Danny and others behind. And the defending champion, probably the odds-on favourite in my eyes to reclaim that title. It's looking good after 5 races. He's still got 2.5 laps left to go. You can still put it in the wall. We can still throw it away. These drivers are not secure in their positions until they cross the line and the flag is out. It's so easy to lose a momentary lap of have a little bit lapse of concentration, snatch a break, run a little wide, take too much curb, too much foot or an exit. You can spin the car around and hit the wall, and your race could be over in an instant. These guys will be aware of it, and Louis and Midnight have probably backed off their pace a little bit. But Lakitu and Skeven Knight are still going to contest this final podium spot, as Toxic in 6th, or now up into 6th, gets past Rafa, and Ashbest will be following through in a lap or so's time. So we wind down the time, wind down the laps as well. These guys will be racing for over an hour tonight. Such is the way Singapore is. Traditionally the longest race on the calendar in terms of time spent on track in the race. And full credit to all these drivers now. In fact, full credit to all drivers across all three tiers. All three tiers have been weather affected. And this is a difficult race to finish anyway. It's a long race to finish. It's a challenging race to finish. And when you throw in the inclement weather as well, the challenge is heightened somewhat. So congratulations to all the drivers in all three tiers that actually did manage to finish the race tonight. Commiserations to those that did retire across all three tiers. Some people just don't like the Singapore circuit. Some don't like the wet weather. Some of them could have crashed through no fault of their own as well. It's a difficult circuit to master. But Louis has done that now, 20 seconds clear of Midnight, who has just backed off the pace a little bit, I think. Just wants to get the car to the end now with just a couple of laps to go. There's nothing for Louis to do at this point other than just circulate round for the next few minutes and claim the race win. Same for Midnight as well. Just take it easy. There's no harm in pushing. There's no harm in going out there and trying to set personal sectors on these intermediate tyres, because the first thing you'll do is put it in the wall. It looks like the rain has eased off a little bit actually. In fact, the rain looks like it's stopped. So I don't think there's going to be anyone out there that's going to be brave and put on a set of dry tyres. We saw it towards the end of the podium tier. Just a couple of laps left to go. A few of us, including me, did dive in the pits for the dry tyres. It did work. But now that these guys are coming slowly in to start their final lap, I don't think anyone will be mad enough to pit for dry tyres. The rain has stopped. But there's still a little bit of spray coming up off these tyres and the roosters on the rear wing as well. And all these guys have got to do now is just circulate for the final time. Louis is already on to his final lap as well. Midnight coming up to the last couple of corners here. He'll be coming through to start his final lap to what will be a thoroughly well-deserved P2. Lakitu and Skeven, this battle will go to the end and penalties may very well decide it over third and fourth. Westy in fifth is looking secure for that position as well. Toxic, there's penalties hanging over his head. He's increased the gap to Ash to just 3 seconds, who's now up into 7th place, passing the disconnected car of Rafa. Harry is 13 seconds behind Rafa, so Rafa's, I don't think, is he back in? I think he is back in actually. Yeah, it looks like Rafa has rejoined. I didn't see it, but his car certainly hasn't ghosted, I don't think. Is his car ghosted? I can't know. His car hasn't ghosted, so Rafa is back into his car, and he'll be utterly dismayed to find himself back in P8 when it was looking good to join his teammate on the podium. It's still points, unfortunately. These things happen. I think all league races and commentators out there have suffered a disconnection at some point. It's truly heartbreaking. It's not your fault. It just happens. Such is the way of the world. But Rafa will be able to bring that car home in P8. Harry in 9th has managed to bridge a little bit of a gap to Larkin behind, and I think Larkin is probably given up now and he'll settle for P10. White Fountain, no, he's 3 seconds back. He won't finish inside the top 10 unless penalties change it, but he will pick up a point for the fastest lap in bracket 2. Scott Bugner in 12th. Khalifa coming into the pits, probably to go onto the dry tyres for a bit of a laugh. Onto the final lap. And Louis then, well, it's been a commanding drive from our championship leader. Picks up a 3-second time penalty at the final corner, but across the line the fireworks go high into the night sky, and it's another race win. 26 points for Louis with the fastest lap. Extends his lead massively in the championship over everyone else behind Midnight. Then another strong result into the top 3, starting to find the form that he had last season. I think he'll be incredibly happy with P2 for himself and the Red Bull team. The battle for P3 rages on then. Lakitu and Skeven, who's going to take this? Will penalties change it? Skeven is not close enough to try anything into the final couple of corners. Lakitu crosses the line in P3 and does keep it, but Skeven in his second race back in One Hub does pick up his first points of the season. We wait for Westy now to cross the line in P5. He'll be very happy. It's a quiet run to P5, but a good result nevertheless for himself and the Renault team. Ashbest will cross the line in P6, and somehow Rafa has managed to get back ahead of Toxic Tomato, who's well off the circuit. So Rafa does cross the line in 7, Toxic Tomato in 8. Something happened to Toxic there. He's got a heavily damaged front wing, so I think he's lost it somewhere on the final lap, and he'll be bitterly disappointed to throw away a P6. Harry across the line, and Larkin, something's happened to Larkin here as well. White Fountain is going to cross the line in 10. Does Larkin have a puncher possibly? I think he might have a puncher. He's going very slowly. 20 laps completed on those intermediate tyres, and White Fountain does finish in P10 and does finally score his first point of the season. He'll be delighted with that puncher as well for Scott Bugner. 18 laps completed on the intermediate tyres. He's going to crawl home in that damaged racing point. Khalifa did stop, but for another set of intermediate tyres. And Scott, go on, just get across the line, my friend. P12 for the racing point. Slivers and slides his way past the finishing line, past the checkered flag. And we now wait for Khalifa to come home. He's being lapped as well by Louis, but I think he was lapped after Louis crossed the line. So Khalifa then, his first race in the Pinnacle tier. Fortunately for him, finishes in P13. He's a classified finisher. He got to the end, 5 others didn't. And the Larkin comes on stream and goes, "No, I feel your pain." Puncher at the very end there throws away a top 10. But congratulations to Louis with the race win and the fastest lap. Midnight as well with a strong P2 for Red Bull. And the key two there finishing on the podium. P3 for Ferrari. So there we go then, the final results. Louis did have a 3-second time penalty, but it changed absolutely nothing from 5th to 1st, and a commanding dominant race win. Midnight and the key to P2 and P3. Skeven had a 3-second penalty, stays in P4. Westy, good run from 11th to 5th for the Renault driver. Ashbest, Rafa in 7th after the disconnection. Toxic Tomato, Harry B and White Fountain picking up his first point of the season. Larkin, Scott Bugner and Khalifa were our last classified runners. We lost Ollie Flavel, Josh, LR Cohen, SOR Hamilton, and very early on T1000 Zach. 18 started, 13 finished. Congratulations to all of them that did manage to get to the end. So as we make our way back to the lobby, the last thing for me to do is pick my 2 driver of the day nominations. Pretty easy, this one. I think the first one has got to go to Louis. He won the race. He started in 5th. Yes, he sort of inherited the lead in the early part of the race, making the change onto the intermediate tyres, using the advantage of being in the Williams and jumping ahead of everyone coming out into the front. But, you know, to finish first you have to finish, and he led the way, very commanding as well. No trouble with the safety car or the virtual safety cars, nothing like that. Timed his pit stop at the right time. Dominant display, won by 20 seconds. The second one is going to go to White Fountain, and why not? He's struggled all season. He's been the perennial back marker. He's been qualifying on the last row. He's been running at the back. He's had no luck. He's been off the pace. And by dint of just finishing the race tonight, he did pick up a legit championship point. He would have had a championship point anyway for having the fastest lap between the 3 drivers that were classified between 11th and 13th. But it's always better to score a point on track rather than given to you for a fastest lap. Yes, if it wasn't for Larkin having a puncher towards the end, he wouldn't have had it. But you've got to finish to pick up the points. And that's what White Fountain did. And he kept it clean. And his pace was good as well. So my 2 votes then are for Louis from going from 5th to 1st and winning by 20 seconds. Another dominant display by a championship leader, and White Fountain for finally scoring his first point of the season. Special shout out, I think, to Westy in the Renault as well. Qualified, I think, outside the top 10. Quiet but commanding race into the top 5. So a special mention to Westy. If White Fountain hadn't scored a point, I think I wouldn't have given it to Westy. He had a quiet race but picked up good points and kept it clean. But yeah, my 2 votes, which will be released by One Hub in the next few days on Twitter. Do make sure you go and vote for who you think is deserving of the Driver of the Day votes, between Louis for winning the race and White Fountain for scoring his very first point. A final mention as well to our main league sponsor, Next Level Racing. I mentioned them at the start and I'll mention them at the end as well. Do check out their website if you are a sim racer in mind, or you want to immerse yourself into that world as much as possible. You know, there's seats, there's rigs, there's steering wheels, there's pedals, there's all the equipment that you need to get yourself going. So do check them out. They're a good sponsor, a keen sponsor of the league, have been for a while. They offer their own prizes for drivers for competing and for winning championships as well. So they do more than just have their name associated with the league. They do give stuff away to some of the drivers who are deserving of it. So do check their website out and buy some stuff if you want to get involved in it as well. Larkin then coming on stream to say no. Midnight comes in to say he had no warning, so well done to him for keeping it clean. And Nikita is saying, let's go, the consistency, that was tough indeed. It's been tough for all 3 tiers tonight. All races, I think, have been well over an hour, so congratulations to everyone getting to the end. And finally, congratulations to the top 3 for their podium results. And finally then, to you guys as well for dropping in and out of the stream. It's been a very busy Friday night. All these races have been very long and very tough for everyone involved. So thank you very much to all of you that have dropped in and out. I'm not here next week, but it is the charity event. Do come along, watch the stream, support the league and the charities as much as you can. Something that One Hub likes to do as well, to give a bit back to the charities as well and do our bit, do our bit for everyone else as much as we can. So thank you very much for tuning in tonight. I will be back in 2 weeks' time for some more Pinnacle action. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your evening.